Have you ever sat in a room full of people and still felt completely alone? Have you ever had so many thoughts racing through your mind, but not a single person to share them with? Or maybe you've stopped talking altogether. Not because you have nothing to say, but because silence feels safer than speaking to people who don't understand you. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome back to Chosen Being. Today we're talking about something most people ignore, but it's one of the most powerful tools you'll ever have on your healing journey. Silence. Not forced silence, but chosen, sacred silence. And trust me, what I'm going to share today may shift how you see yourself, your energy, and even your connection with the divine. So don't forget to listen to the final part of this video. There's something deep waiting for you there. Stay tuned till the end. Let's begin. There was a time in my life when I used to be the one who always filled the silence. I'd over-explain, overshare, and try to keep everyone comfortable. I thought silence meant disconnection, that if I wasn't constantly talking, people would leave, or worse, forget me. But slowly, life began to teach me that silence isn't absence. Silence is presence. It's where your soul finally has a chance to speak, to breathe, to just be. I started to notice that when I stopped reacting immediately, I could actually feel what was really going on inside me. When I didn't rush to respond, I understood where my triggers were coming from. When I didn't explain myself to everyone, I protected my peace. And when I sat in silence with my pain, I didn't drown. I healed. Not all at once, but piece by piece, silence began to show me what noise was hiding. The truth, the wounds, the patterns, the ways I was abandoning myself just to keep others comfortable. And I want you to pause right now and ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed yourself to sit in silence without distraction? No phone, no music, no scrolling. It's just you, your breath, and your spirit. It might feel uncomfortable at first. It's because in silence, there's nowhere to hide. But that's also where you begin to see yourself clearly, not through someone else's expectations, not through society's definitions, but through the eyes of your own soul. I remember once, I had just walked out of a painful argument with a close family member. Instead of calling a friend to vent, I sat alone on the floor, cried, then I breathed, then I listened. And in that silence, I heard this small, quiet voice inside whisper, "You're safe. You don't need to fight to be seen anymore." That moment changed me, not because someone else validated me, but because I finally listened to myself. And that's what silence does. It brings you back to yourself. People often think silence is weakness, but I promise you it's one of the strongest things you can ever master, because it teaches you how to respond with clarity, not react from pain. It teaches you how to walk away without drama. It teaches you that not everything deserves your energy. Silence is the place where your intuition speaks the loudest. It's where your nervous system gets to rest. It's where your heart starts remembering what really matters. And in this noisy, chaotic world that's rare, powerful. So if you've been afraid of silence, maybe it's time to see it differently. It's not empty. It's full of answers you've been praying for. In the next part of this video, I'll share how silence can actually protect your energy from narcissists, toxic relationships, and emotional exhaustion. It's not what most people expect, but once you get it, it can shift your entire healing journey. So stay with me. The silence is just getting started. Part 2. This part focuses on how silence protects your energy, especially from toxic people like narcissists, and continues in the same human, grounded tone. You see, silence doesn't just heal, it also protects, especially when you're dealing with people who feed off reactions. You know the type. They push your buttons, say things that poke at your wounds, and when you finally react, they say, "See, you're too emotional." But when you stay silent, not out of fear, but out of awareness, they lose their grip. Because silence is not passive, it's powerful. I used to think I had to explain myself to everyone, even to the people who clearly didn't care to understand. I'd write long messages, rehash arguments in my head, and lie awake at night wondering, did I say too much? Should I have said it differently? Until I realized Explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you is a trap, and silence is your way out. One day, after a draining conversation with someone I truly cared about, I realized I was doing all the emotional labor, justifying my feelings, translating my intentions. So I stopped, and instead of another long reply, I said nothing. At first, it felt like losing control. But soon, I felt a strange peace wash over me, because I was no longer trying to prove my worth through words. I was holding my energy sacred, and here's the truth. Most people don't tell you. Toxic people feed on your reactions. It gives them power, it gives them a story. But when you remain grounded in your silence, they're forced to sit with their own noise. It's not about ignoring people, it's about choosing where your energy goes. You don't need to respond to every accusation. You don't need to correct every lie. You don't need to defend every boundary. Your silence becomes a wall. Not a wall to keep love out, but a wall to keep your peace in. And this is where a shift begins inside you, where silence no longer feels like something being done to you. It becomes something you choose, something that empowers you. One time I was at a family gathering. Someone said something really passive-aggressive to me in front of everyone. Old me would have either smiled through it or snapped back. But that day, I simply looked at them, smiled gently, and stayed quiet. Not because I didn't have words, but because their words didn't deserve mine. Later that evening, a cousin came up to me and whispered, "That was the most graceful way I've ever seen someone handle nonsense." That's the thing. Your silence teaches others how serious you are about your energy, teaches you to observe more and react less. And slowly you begin to realize not every battle is worth fighting. Not every invitation to chaos needs an RSVP. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. In the next part of this video, I'll show you how silence deepens your connection with the divine, because there are answers, visions, and healing waiting in the quiet that noise will never give you. So stay close. You're about to discover what your soul has been trying to whisper all along. Part 3. This part focuses on how silence deepens your connection with the divine with real life, insights, and a grounded, emotional tone. There's a sacred moment that happens when the noise fades. When the phone is off, the world is asleep. And for once, there's no one pulling at your energy. It's just you and that still small voice inside. That voice. It's not always loud, but it's wise. It's been with you since before the world told you who to be. But it speaks best. When you're silent, silence isn't emptiness. It's a container, a space where God, your higher self, your guides, whatever name you hold close, can finally speak without being drowned out. I remember a time when I was deeply confused about a major life decision. My mind was spinning with opinions. Family, friends, mentors, everyone had something to say, but their words became noise. And in trying to please everyone, I forgot to listen to the one voice that mattered most, my own. So I took a weekend. No calls, no social media, just me, a journal, and a quiet corner of nature. The first day I felt restless. The silence felt like too much. But by the second day, something shifted. Thoughts began to slow down. Feelings I had buried came up softly, gently, and then came the clarity. It's not in the form of a thunderbolt, but in a deep inner knowing. A peaceful yes that rose from my belly and settled in my chest. That's what silence gives you. Not just answers, but alignment. It clears away the noise of the world so you can hear the whispers of your soul. And when you hear that whisper, you start to realize you were never really lost. You were just distracted, pulled in too many directions, trying to live life on someone else's frequency. But your soul? It has its own rhythm, its own song. And silence is how you tune back into it. Sometimes we pray and pray, but we don't stop to listen. We ask for signs, but don't create the stillness to receive them. Cry out for guidance, but fill our lives with so much movement. There's no space for it to land. But when you sit in silence, even for just 10 minutes, you begin to feel God in the room. Not always in words, but in the way your breath slows, and the way peace begins to rise in your chest. in the way your mind softens and your heart opens. That's the sacred power of stillness. It's where healing happens, where visions are born, where alignment returns. Silence isn't passive. It's a portal. It's a bridge between your human confusion and divine clarity. It's where you stop doing and start receiving. In my lowest moments, silence didn't save me by giving me the answers I wanted. It saved me by reminding me that I was never alone, that even in the absence of noise, I was fully seen, fully loved, and that love didn't have to be earned. It just was. In part 4, we'll talk about how silence actually strengthens your intuition. You'll learn how it's not just about hearing God or the universe, but about hearing yourself, your own inner compass, the part of you that always knows. So keep watching. We're going deeper. And this next part might be the one your soul has been silently waiting for. Part 4. Now focusing on how silence strengthens intuition and self-trust. With a human, reflective tone, there's something sacred about tuning out the world and turning inward. Start to notice things you'd usually ignore. The tightness in your chest when something feels off. The warmth in your belly when something feels right. The sudden chills when truth passes through you like a whisper from the divine. That's intuition. That's the part of you that knows before logic catches up. Silence is where it grows the strongest. See, most people think intuition is some magical gift only a few people have. But the truth is, we all have it. Like a radio signal. It gets fuzzy when too much static surrounds us. Noise, opinions, social media, doubts. Even your own thoughts can drown out that quiet, steady voice inside. But silence. Silence is where that voice gets clearer, more confident, more grounded. I remember one moment very clearly. I had a job offer that looked perfect on paper. More money, more status, beautiful office. Everyone around me said, "Take it." Is what you've worked for? But something in me hesitated. Not fear, not laziness, just an inner tension. Something didn't feel aligned, but I couldn't explain why. So instead of rushing into it, I sat in silence. Every day for a week. No overthinking, just being, listening. And one evening, while sitting on my balcony with nothing but the sound of wind in my breath, I felt a knowing rise in me. This is not your path. It wasn't a loud voice. It wasn't dramatic, but it was clear. It changed the direction of my life. That's what happens in silence. You stop trying to find answers with your mind and start feeling them with your soul. Your intuition isn't loud, doesn't argue or explain. It doesn't beg you to listen. It simply speaks once, gently, and waits for you to come home to it. In a world that's constantly pulling you outward, silence calls you inward, to remember, to reconnect, to realign. And once you've built that trust with your inner voice, no one else's opinion can shake you. No job title can define you. No rejection can destroy you. Because you know who you are. You know what feels right? You've heard your soul speak, and that truth becomes your compass. If you've ever second-guessed yourself. If you've ever felt torn between what the world says and what your heart knows, try silence. Just 10 minutes a day. Sit, breathe, listen, and don't worry if nothing big happens. Sometimes healing happens quietly, in the pauses, in the softening. In the space between breaths, in the next and final part, we'll talk about how silence becomes not just a spiritual tool, but a way of living. A foundation for peace, power, and divine guidance. Part 5. How silence becomes your most powerful spiritual tool. You see, silence isn't just a moment of peace you create. It becomes a lifestyle you embody. It's not just about escaping noise. It's about cultivating inner stillness, no matter where you are. Whether you're in a crowded room, stuck in traffic, or in the middle of an emotional storm, you learn to carry the sanctuary of silence within you. That's the real power. It's not about needing perfect conditions to feel calm. It's about choosing to return to your center again and again till it becomes your second nature. Some people chase peace in outer circumstances. They think, when I move to a quieter place and the chaos ends, when people finally understand me. But peace doesn't come from what's around you, it comes from what's within you. And silence teaches you to build that space, where nothing outside can touch the truth inside. As I embraced more silence in my life, something began to change. I no longer reacted to every trigger. I stopped rushing to fill awkward pauses in conversations. I stopped over-explaining myself to people who never really listened. Found that in stillness, you start letting go of roles that were never really yours to carry. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You start being in that space. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to impress anyone. You just have to be on. That's more than enough. People may misunderstand your silence. They might think you're distant, cold, arrogant, but you'll know the truth. You'll know that your silence is a sacred boundary, a gentle protection of your peace. A decision to not engage with what drains your soul. And slowly, you'll notice you attract different conversations, deeper connections, more soul-aligned paths, because silence isn't empty. It's full of truth, full of energy, full of divine guidance. It's in the silence that you finally hear God, not in the noise of opinions, not in the chaos of performance, or in that whisper, that still small voice that says, "You are enough. You are held. You are whole." So, if you've been running, hustling, performing, proving, maybe it's time to pause, to listen, to be still. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is nothing at all. Just breathe, just feel, just exist. That's where healing happens. That's where alignment begins. And that's where your real power is reborn. So, beautiful soul, let silence be your teacher. Let it strip away what isn't you. Let it guide you back home. Because when you choose silence, you choose yourself. If this message touched your heart, let me know in the comments. How do you feel when you spend time in silence? What truth has it revealed to you? And if you're on this journey of healing and inner awakening, subscribe. 2. Chosen being, because this is where your soul gets to be seen, heard, and supported. Until next time, stay grounded, stay soft, stay sacred, and never forget the divine speaks loudest. In silence,